Cageside with John Morgan.
And welcome everybody to another episode of Cageside with John Morgan. I'm your host, Eric McMahon. Let's get into it. That's John Morgan. And if you could hear our conversation before we hit record, I mean, this is really pulling back the curtain. But let's just get right into it. UFC Atlantic City. It's going to dominate our topic today. Oh, yeah. And a blockbuster fight was made for a little bit down the line. We'll get into that as well. But I want to start. UFC Atlantic City, Chris Weidman, Bruno Silva ends in a lot of controversy, which sucks because the All-American Chris Weidman, we all want to see him win. We all want to see him get back on track, but not that way. So now that I already introduced you, John Morgan, how you doing, brother?
I'm good, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, you hate to start out with controversy. Obviously, there's some big fights that happen. Maybe a number one contender was established in the women's flyweight division, but I don't see how you don't start with this fight. I mean, it was the most controversial moment of the night, and because it involved a figure that was so beloved, and gosh, let's just be honest, I think everybody was cheering for it, so it makes the whole situation even more weird. It's like, it's just where you have to start. So I'm doing good. I'm staying at the Resorts World Las Vegas, having some fun with my family on an Easter weekend. My kid didn't have school today, so we're having fun. But if we're talking MMA, this has to be the starting point.
Listen, it was a mess, okay? And, I'm always going to err on, listen, the ref knows better than us. And as an official, I take a lot of shit a lot of times. Right. But more often than not, I'm right because I know the rule set and the nuances in a rule set and everything in between. And the announcers don't even know. Let's be honest. The announcers, a lot of times, they know the general arc of the rule. They don't know the nuance of the rule. Right.
Yep.
And, but it's hard for me to explain this one. It's hard for me to take it up. And, I met Gary Copeland. I met him at UFC Nashville. Nice guy. A veteran referee. The guy has been reffing, longer than I've been involved in the sport. Okay.
Right.
So he's a very competent person to have in that cage, but you got to call balls and strikes, and I'm not immune to criticism. You as a journalist aren't immune to criticism, and Gary Copeland isn't immune to criticism. He got it wrong.
I agree. I think the wrong decision was made here. Obviously, this fight was marred with eye pokes. You could tell. I think even Gary Copeland was getting frustrated with the situation. I think we were all frustrated as we watched it at home, and I think he was getting a little upset with the number of eye pokes that were in there. Certainly, Bruno Silva was upset about it as well. But I think what you're saying is crazy. But I think what you're saying is right. I think sometimes we approach this whole sport with hey, it's okay to be wrong sometimes. And that doesn't make you a bad official or a bad judge or a bad fighter or whatever, a bad journalist, a bad commentator. It's okay to be wrong sometimes. And then you learn from that. That's what we do in life, right? You make mistakes, you learn, and you go, well, if that situation ever happens again, I'll never make the same mistake, or I'll be, I know how to handle it better. And I just don't think the right decision was reached here. It was props to the UFC for explaining, because for anybody that happened to maybe not see this, it was originally declared a TKO. Then they come back and they say, no, it's actually going to be a technical decision. And good on Brendan Fitzgerald and the UFC to take the moment to explain that, because I think that took away maybe a little of the controversy, but not really, because I think it's still controversial. To be honest, I don't like the decision the way it ended. I understand, why they did what they did, but I don't think the right decision was made, because ultimately they didn't identify the foul until later, right? So,
okay,
how do you go that way?
Listen, I'm going to drop some truth bombs here about just what the rules are.
Right.
Okay. And that's going to add a lot of clarity on how did it go from this to that? And then we'll dive into where mistakes were made. Because I think it's important for people to have the knowledge. Okay, yeah, why was it this and that? I've heard everybody saying no contest a lot. It's not an option. It's in the third round of a fight. It's just not an option. The rules state that if you complete 2 rounds and a foul occurs in that third round that either that was accidental and you deem a non-disqualification, it's got to go to the scorecards. More than 2/3 of the round have occurred. That's why a lot of times you'll see a referee if a guy has a bad cut or something, right? That may have been due to a clash of heads, and he's in the corner between round 2 and 3. And I like to do this when I know something like that happened. I'll call the clackers go off, clack, 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 10-second clacker. So that means that the corners have to get out. I will not start the third round. I'll say timeout, neutral fighter, go to neutral corner. Fighter, come to this neutral corner. Doctor, come in. Now let's take a look at it, because that as a referee, that gives me the options, right? I can say this is a no contest. The third round has not started yet, right? Or I can say it's a disqualification because it happened by an illegal knee earlier or whatever. But once that third round starts, it has to go to the scorecards. Like the no contest is off the table at that point.
And that's part of the discussion you and I were having behind the scenes, and I want to put it out in front of it too, is, and I appreciate the fact, because you obviously have an even better understanding of the rules than I do. You've had to study them even more religiously than I have in my career. So, and I know that to be the case as well. I'm here to say that I think that needs to change, because I feel that what happened here is Bruno Silva was robbed of more than 2.5 minutes of an opportunity to win the fight, right? Because Gary Copeland did not identify the foul at first, okay? He sees Bruno Silva, turn and go to the ground, at which point he's basically a defenseless fighter. He's not intelligently defending himself. Weidman swarms with punches, as you do. You don't blame Chris Weidman. You're told to fight until the referee tells you to stop. And at that point, Gary Copeland weighs it off. We've got a TKO finish. Chris Weidman celebrates. Every crowd goes crazy. Everybody's happy to see it. Then upon review, because Bruno Silva is protesting vehemently, hey, I was poked in the eye so bad that's why I went to the ground, not because I was stunned and hurt from a punch.
And a punch never even landed.
The punch never even landed, exactly. And you go to the replay, and not only do you have one eye poked, you've got two eye pokes. I mean, literally both eyes are poked, right? And this is in a fight where you've already had multiple eye pokes. You've had multiple warnings of, hey, Chris, make sure you're making a fist, right? Because that's a rule now. You can't reach out with your hands forward because we're trying to prevent the eye pokes. And it's natural, right? Some of the blame goes on the UFC glove. I'll just be honest with you. I mean, people have talked about it, but it's true. You know it. You've seen those gloves actually force your hand open. They don't force your hand closed. You actually have to work to keep your hand closed. So part of the blame goes there. And it's natural, right?
Tight gloves.
They are. And it's natural too, right? Because, you're trying to like parry down a hand, or you're trying to grab a wrist. You're trying to grab at things, but you can't. So I'm not calling Chris Weidman a dirty fighter, but his fingers weren't moving forward. Now, when we go to the replay, Gary Copeland sees the replay and says, oh my gosh, there were two eye pokes. You're so right. This isn't a TKO. So then he follows the rules and says, you know what? At this point, we have to go to the cards because we've got this foul that ended the fight. But here's my problem with the rule is that the foul didn't end the fight. The referee ended the fight. Bruno Silva didn't say, I can't continue. He wasn't given an opportunity to continue because the fight was waved off. This, to me, is akin to a referee calling a submission when a tap wasn't made, and the review is like, oh, my gosh, there wasn't. He didn't see the foul. And if he didn't see the foul and he stopped for something he didn't see, to me, the referee at that point has robbed this fighter of more than 2.5 minutes of an opportunity to win the fight. And at that point, I believe, and I know that you're spot on that the rules don't call for it now. I think there needs to be a rule written into it. If the referee makes a mistake, that to me has to be a no contest. And I know that might be an unfortunate ending, or who likes a no contest? You want a result. But Bruno Silva was not given an opportunity to win that fight, and it was due to. And again, this is no criticism of Gary Copeland. And I actually wanted to ask you about how difficult it is to see an eye poke, but he didn't see the eye poke until the replay. So for me, that's a fight that should not have been stopped. Bruno Silva should have been allowed to continue should he be able to see. And therefore, to me, I believe the rules need to be changed to allow for a no contest. I did want to ask you how hard it is to see those eye pokes, because I know for me, cage side, you're even closer than me. For me, cage side, I feel like oftentimes really all you have to go on is the fighter's reaction more than actually seeing the digit go into the eye, because it's often just covered up by the hand, right? So, I mean, I know it was tough for Gary.
It is tough. It's extremely tough. But, it's kind of, I think both of us early in round number 1 could have predicted an eye poke was going to happen. You know, you see tendencies that lead to something, and you don't want to ever put a preconceived notion in your head, but it's against human nature not to. So when I see a fighter doing that and I warn it, I'm hyper vigilant to it, right? Now, let's be honest. Where do eye pokes happen? They happen on the defensive. And that's a lot of time fans don't understand. It's not like somebody's coming out here just poking you in the eye. A punch is coming and you defend. This is a very Muay Thai-esque style of defense, right? Boom. So as you're coming into punch, I'm retreating and blocking. Now my fingers come out, okay? So in the I lost count. I know one wasn't even mentioned that there was an eye poke, so that would have been the 4th. So maybe really even the 5th and 6th eye poke, okay?
Right.
But the sequence was very fast. So I don't put it on Gary Copeland for not seeing it because nobody could see it. The commentators didn't see it. I didn't see it in real time. We didn't see it until the guy was like, "What are you doing?" Right? And then we saw the replay and we're like, "Holy smoke."
Bruno Silva's reaction was what we normally see when somebody is stunned and hurt and they go to the ground and they cover up because they know they're about to be finished. I don't, the reaction, that's what it looked like to me.
Well, and the sequence went as followed. Bruno Silva came in with a punch. Weidman went block, hook. And it was like that fast. Mm-hmm. So it was really 2 eye pokes and a hook that didn't land, caught the shoulder. And so wherever you are as the referee, you're blocked by that motion now. So you can't, in reality, unless you are like in the perfect position in an MMA fight, it's very hard to be in the perfect position. It was almost impossible to see it. The cameras didn't pick it up in real time. The commentators, me nor you, did. Okay. So listen, I'm giving Gary Copeland the benefit of the doubt on not calling the foul. 100%.
Agreed.
Give him the benefit of the doubt. Can we go back to the start of round 2 when all this started, though? Right? Because I think there's processes that need to happen that necessarily did and didn't happen. I want to go all the way back to the rules meetings. This happens in every single rule meeting, every single one. Okay, I'll give you my rule meeting right now. Hey, fighter. Hey, John. Hey, I'm gonna be reffing your fight today. Before I get started,
nice
do you or your corner have any questions?
No, man. I'm just ready to fight. Let me go out of my shield. Don't stop me early.
All righty. Well, I'm gonna. This contest is contested under the unified rules of mixed martial arts and the state of New Jersey Athletic Commission. Now, you already know the rules. It's not my job to teach you them right now. You've already at this level, you know all the rules, but there are some key points that I do want to go over to make sure me and you are explicitly clear. Number 1, we're going to go over the down fighter rule. Contrary to popular belief, we're not in the state of Nevada, so you need a flat palm or a flat fist. Anything other than the soles of your feet, excluding the finger. This is still legal to knee. That is illegal. That is illegal. Are we clear on that? Okay, good. Now moving on, I want to go to the eye poke rule. Okay, it's not necessarily the intent. The actual eye poke isn't what we're worried about. It is after the fact. But listen, our fingers need to be up to the ceiling or down to the floor. Better yet, keep your fingers closed. You can go out to the side here. You can go out to the side there. Anything towards the face, that is the infraction. I can warn you and even eventually get to a point where a point deduction and or disqualification if we keep doing that infraction. Okay? So just so we're clear, if you hear me say close those fingers, it means close those fingers. Or to the ceiling or to the floor. Better yet, let's keep them here. All right. And then I keep going on, and I got about another 2 minutes. Go. But that is said. That is said in every rules meeting. Every rules meeting I've ever done. I've seen all the big dogs. I haven't seen Gary Copeland's. I assume he is a very good referee. I assume he said it. Okay. So that's where a lot of this problem arises because Weidman right off the bat, he's pawn. He's pawn out the gate, you know? And so hindsight being 2020.
Yep.
Eye poke number 2. That's a point. It's a point. There was warnings, already a rule infraction with the warnings, right? Even if you don't stop the action, you're giving them that's an infraction. I'm telling you, you're breaking the rules. You need to stop. Then you get the eye poke, then more warnings, then another eye poke. Stop.
Yep.
Timeout. Hey, fighter over here. Chris, I had warned you. Unfortunately, I have to take a point. I don't care how bad the eye poke was. It was maybe unintentional, but it was unintentional due to your actions. And now he is a compromised fighter, and I have to be the referee to level the playing field. That's why the point comes in. Everybody, that's why the point comes in. I'm leveling the playing field.
You hit it spot on, and I love what you said. And the word that came to my mind as you were saying it was unintentional, and what popped in my mind, but it was preventable. You know what I mean? Like if it's an eye poke that happens just through some weird, bizarre, like maybe we're in some grappling sequence or something, and I'm trying to push away or I'm trying to grab, and it was, you know what I mean? It's some weird sequence where it's like, dude, that was just, it got in the way. So sorry, I didn't mean to happen. But when it's, because Gary did at one point, after one of the, it was almost immediately after an eye poke, Gary Copeland said, Chris, close the fist, because he immediately went back to putting that hand forward, right? So it was preventable. It was predictable that it was going to happen. As you said from the beginning, you're like, dude, you can't fight like that, right? I mean, that used to be the big complaint of John Jones, right? I mean, when that rule was put into place. I was going to say, when that rule was put into place, it was called the John Jones rule, right? Because he would reach out like that. And obviously he's got the 84-inch wingspan. So it's preventable. And I think you're right. And again, I think it's important to point out, not saying that, hey, Gary Copeland isn't a quality official, but I think even he, in reviewing in retrospect, because you got to learn from your mistakes, will probably say, I could have done a better job. When he gave that verbal warning, Chris, close the fist, he could have stopped it right then and just been like, listen to me. This is your final warning. If I see it again, I've got to take a point, or I may even disqualify you. You know what I mean? Rather than just mention it in passing and then allow it to happen, because that would have made it far more easy to go back and review and be like, bro, I'm sorry, man, but not only is this not a TKO, not only are we not going to the cards, I'm going to disqualify you. I have already taken a point from you. I've already given you multiple verbal warnings. And yes, I didn't see it live, but as we watch this replay, I now see that you poked him in the eyes. And, whether you think his reaction was, legitimate or not, because I think some people say, oh, well, why did he react that way? Is he feigning? Is he putting on? Whether you feel his reaction was justified or not, you clearly poked him in the eye twice on one sequence, as we have already warned you and taken and said you can't do this anymore, right? So, yeah, I honestly, I think had in retrospect, as you said, hindsight being 2020, had he taken a little bit more control of the situation, been a little bit more stern in handling it, then I think, honestly, at that point, you probably just called it a disqualification. I know that Bruno Silva plans on protesting the results. I know that historically, it's very difficult to get anything overturned in front of any committee. This one has legs. I think this one has legs too. And again, I really do feel like maybe this needs to be a policy change that can be talked about in the rules meeting, because again, I think the referee robbed Bruno Silva of an opportunity to win the fight. And because, and again, I don't blame him. As you said, it's hard to see. None of us saw it live, so we can't blame him for not seeing it live. But when we see that is what happened, I just don't see how you can even give a win to Chris Weidman. And it sucks because, right, as we said at the top, dude, I mean, none of us are, we're supposed to be unbiased, but who wasn't pulling for Chris Weidman at least a little bit, knowing the hell that he's been through, knowing
you're not human if you're not.
100%, right? I mean, he's a great champion. He's a great dude, a great family man by all accounts, and we know what he's gone through. You know what I mean? We know what he's done. And so you wanted it, not that you want bad for Bruno Silva, but you just wanted good for Chris Weidman. He's fighting in New Jersey, close to home. His family's in the crowd. You want all these good things, but I don't know, man. Just the way that this thing played out, to me, I think no contest feels right, or even DQ.
Let's go back, right? Because, man, I feel for Gary Copeland in this situation. Okay, you're in a ruckus arena with the hometown guy fighting with all the backstory that you just laid out. Okay, they're booing Bruno Silva for getting poked in the eye repeatedly.
So true.
They're booing him, right? Now, with the level that the UFC is on, like I reffed a card this past weekend, Tupelo, Mississippi. Guess what? We didn't have replay. Okay.
Right.
Even CFFC, when I go to replay, I'm like, John, I look to you and you'll almost replay it for me before I can then look up on the score, like, and if I need to go to replay. But that's funny because I do that all the time, and you know what I'm looking at.
100%.
You and Punk,
because I've got a monitor in front of me. I'm watching it. You can't see it, so I'm like, oh no, it's
right.
Nope.
Yeah, I'm like, was it? I go, oh, was it good or was it bad? And they're like, yeah, it was a nut shot. Okay, so that's the process in the UFC, and I want everybody to just kind of understand the mechanisms at play here. A foul happens, stop, neutral corners. My first. Now, this is the way I do it. Right, wrong, or indifferent. I'm not saying it's any different than Gary Copeland's, or it's better or worse than Gary Copeland's. It's the way I do it. Now, granted, I've only been in the apex. I'm only doing it in the lower stress environment. And I need to throw that out there. The stress of a sold out arena with the hometown guy, he wants to get that fight back going, right? That's what your job as the ref is do. Let's not hold up anything that it doesn't need to be held up, right? And so what I would do, like in the apex, is what I did with the, an eye poke, and I did it with groin strikes. And I go and I would turn to who's ever in the replay booth, okay, in the replay monitor. Now, we may be giving Gary Copeland too much, or there may be too much scrutiny on Gary Copeland right now for this point, because when something happens, our first instinct is to turn and go to the replay booth. If that guy's not engaged, or it's not queued up right, or whatever, giving him the tells, because we can't see everything all the time. That's the exact reason it's there. And so we need to take the time and say, okay, let's evaluate this situation. Like, production be damned. We need to get this right. So you go there, and then, somebody will give me a thumbs up and down. If it's marred in a little bit, well, I don't know, then the referee literally has to get out of the cage. Another ref has to come in, stand in place. And then so now, as the only arbiter of the fight, I need to see the replay with my own eyes. And I need to do that. It didn't look like this happened here. Yeah, and so that's what I'm just saying, like, the stress of the environment was like, let's get this going. Let's, okay, just like, let's keep your fingers closed, and so it was kind of like the snowball just going downhill, and it got bigger and bigger and bigger. And I don't want to put all this on Gary Copeland. It could have been the replay, where the replay officials giving him the proper signals, the proper tells that he needed. I don't know any of that. But what I do know is when eventually we realized that the eye poke happened and the fight was waved off, because we can't restart it at that point. Chris Weidman had already jumped the fence. He'd already been hugging people. He'd already been doing all these things. So now you are at two options: disqualification or go to the scorecards. Looked like they go to scorecards. I don't even know that a point was deducted, though. I don't know.
It wasn't. Well, at least in the way it was recorded, it wasn't. So, I mean, all I have is the official scorecards that are provided by the UFC. I would assume that they're, they've got the information perfect, but they all say 30-27 on there. So there's no, and normally when there is a point deduction, you'll see like the little -1. It'll say 10, but there'll be a -1 and it's scratch.
Well, and it would have been, instead of a 9, it would have been an 8, or it would have been 9-9. That would have been your tell too. Right.
Exactly.
So it didn't look, so there was only two options: right, wrong, or indifferent. There's only two. Having the conversation that we had before, being like, it was an unintentional act, yet preventable but your actions, whether consciously or subconsciously, robbed Bruno Silva the opportunity to compete. It leaves me one option. That is hindsight being 2020. That is not me in a 13,000-14,000 seat venue with this crowd going crazy that Chris Weidman. And so I feel for Gary Copeland. He is very capable. I don't think that this needs to stain anything moving forward. Listen, as a fighter, like, I hope the commission does the right thing and overturns this to just like I think after the fact, the commission can make it a no contest. But I think in the moment, the referee cannot, because that's the referee's call. But after the fact, I believe the commission does. I hope they do the right thing. I hope they overturn it to a no contest. And, I hope Bruno Silva got paid his win bonus.
Yeah, man, that would be nice. You laid it out perfectly. Obviously, man, you're a professional in this environment, and you laid it out spot on. And I think you hit the nail on the head too. That's not really a mar on Copeland's ability as an official. This is a weird situation, right? All the thousands and thousands and thousands of fights that I've seen, either cage side or commentated on or watched on TV, I've never seen this particular sequence of events that I can recall where it was like multiple eye pokes and then a double eye poke leads to the finish, but none of us saw it originally and we thought it was a straight TKO. I've never seen this happen. It's a weird situation, but I think you nailed it, right? We have these checks and balances in place so that we get it right. And props to Gary Copeland. Earlier in the night, there was a growing shot where the fighter was like, I'm ready to come back. And he was like, I think I'm ready to come back. And Gary was like, no, you've got 5 minutes. Don't say you think. Make sure you're ready. Make sure you're good to go. And so at that point, he wasn't rushing anything. He wasn't worried about, we got to move this thing along. And so, here, everybody was trying to do the right thing. I think you're right. I think in retrospect, when you look back on it and they get a chance to review it, I think you're right. The more you lay it out, it probably disqualification was probably the right call. And so I think the appeal has the right call. I would like to see maybe the rules be changed a little bit where no contest is on the table because, again, only because the foul wasn't identified until the replay. The fight was waved off, and at that point, that's when we saw the foul. So to me, that's an early intervention from the referee. I like no contest, but I'll be honest with you, the more you lay out the sequence and talk about it, the more I lean towards disqualification isn't the worst decision to be made here. And it sucks because we were all cheering for Chris Weidman. We all love Chris Weidman, and we all want to see good things for him. And that would be a horribly anticlimactic result for the crowd in Atlantic City. But I think it's probably justified.
Listen, from my experiences working in the UFC and under an environment that wasn't as stressful as that, okay? I've seen situations, and Mark Smith even did this to me. He's working the replay on a fight. I call the foul. Mark, are we good? Are we like, what's up? He's like, yeah, low blow. But hey, come over. Let me explain it to you. So I'll come over there and he'll kind of give me that play-by-play. And then I can kind of peek up at the main Jumbotron. It matched exactly what I thought I saw, what Mark Smith reiterated, and I saw again. I'm going to tell you, I was watching for that, and I didn't see it happen. So It's hard to put all this on Gary Copeland. It is. If you're not in the moment given the proper information at the time, how can you make the proper call without all the facts?
Yep.
And that's a big thing that I think he's getting crushed right now. And in hindsight, being 2020, did he get it wrong? Probably. Yes. But why did he get it wrong? That needs to be said.
100%. 100%. And that's where we learn. That's where the lessons are made. That's how we make sure it doesn't happen. Again, we might watch another 25 years of fights before we see something happen just this way, right? But that's what you do. I mean, that's how the rules have developed. That's how every sport evolves, right? I mean, you write a set of rules for a sport and you don't anticipate every single situation. And then something comes up and you go, oh, you know what? If that ever happens again, we need to make sure it's handled this way. And so I agree. I don't think any grief needs to be given on Copeland, to be honest with you. I just don't think the result was just. I felt like Bruno Silva was
and his replay official his replay official may not have been as demonstrative as Mark Smith is about things. Eric, get over here. I need to tell you so you know exactly what happened. And that's his like pilot background, his military background is he's like, hey, we are going to check every single box here. Thank you, Mark. Right? I watched for that to happen. I didn't see it happen. Not to say that it didn't, but I didn't see it happen.
You're right. You're 100% right. Because, right, it's still up to the referee to decide, right? I mean, again, the sole arbiter of the contest, it's still up to him. But, he shouldn't have to be the only one asking for information from the replay official, right? The replay official, if he sees something clear and evident, and we've seen that, right? In Nevada, right? The replay official put the light out, right? Because the replay official has identified something the referee needs to be made aware of, right? So if he needs to see it, he needs to see it. So yeah, 100%. I didn't see that either. Now again, maybe it was just a camera angle. You and I weren't in the building, so it's probably important we notice that, or we note that here, because maybe we just didn't see something in a camera angle, or it cut away, or whatever the case may be. Maybe it did happen, but we didn't see it, and that would have been very helpful. If it did happen, then kudos to the person that did it. But I think that would, if I'm guessing, I don't think it did, because I don't think the information was relayed as clearly as it could have been. And it didn't seem like, how about the fact that Bruce Buffer was in there pretty quick to read things out? So it's pretty clear, like, oh, we're good to go. Like, this decision has been made, right? Normally, Bruce is right there at the scorer's table. If there's like some controversy or some holding going on, he's going to, what? Let me make sure I got this right. You know what I mean? He was right in there. So it didn't look like at that point anything had been done.
So, yeah, to tie this in a bow, I think it's hard to tie it in a bow.
I was going to say, that's why I had to giggle a little bit. I was like, can you?
I don't have all the information to say what was. Listen, I think the ultimate decision was wrong.
Right.
I think it should have been a DQ. But how did Copeland get there? And I don't have the answer to that question. I haven't talked to him. I don't know Gary Copeland. I know he's a good ref. I know he's a capable ref, and I know he's been around so damn long, and he knows
long
it.
Time.
Okay. But I don't know how he got there. And without knowing how he got to that decision, I can't decide what was right or what was wrong, other than I think hindsight being 2020 and watching this at nauseam length is that I got to watch it a lot more than he ever did in that moment, in that high pressure situation. I came to a different conclusion of a disqualification, but he wasn't afforded that opportunity. Let's just keep that in mind.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, man. Spot on. And again, if we're talking about a way to maybe handle it different, had he been a little bit more forceful along the way of maybe deducting a point, stopping it a little more frequently, then he would have been more comfortable calling a disqualification, because he probably maybe just didn't feel comfortable with it. Even if he saw the eye pokes, maybe he's like, man, I haven't even taken a point. How am I going to call a DQ at this point? But it probably was justified. A DQ, honestly, was probably justified here. I'm still hoping for some way it ends up in a no contest, because that feels like a more fair result to me. But I don't know, man. I hate to bring the hammer down on somebody sometimes, but honestly, when you walk through the events and you walk through how things happen from all the way from the start to the fighters meeting in the back, a DQ probably is justified, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, it's explicitly outlined. But you know what? Honestly, at the same time, Gary Copeland was saying that's a foul. That's a foul. That's a foul. So I'm not saying he necessarily did anything wrong in the moment, right? In the moment, he didn't do anything wrong. Like, Gary Copeland was like, Chris, keep your hands in. Chris, that was a foul. Chris, keep your hands in. It was just how we got to that end point, which is up for, I guess, interpretation, because we don't know who was talking to him from the replay booth, what was going on. I'm telling everybody here, if you think it's cut and dry, a lot of time, the variables that are going on in those moments. I mean, you have, Mark Ratner sitting over there. You have the executive director. Then you have who the replay. Then you got Bruce Buffer. Hey, what's the call? What's the call? You have the other commission rep. Hey, how did that fight end? I need to call. I need to write it down. I'm like, everybody stop. Let me try and get my bearings here. And in a press situation like that, you necessarily can't do it. So you're like, okay, replay official, what'd you say? Oh, you're not giving me much information. Oh, snap. I saw on the replay right there, it was an eye poke. Now it can only be a DQ. How egregious was it? I didn't have the time to process it. We're going to the scorecards. That's so easy for that to have happened.
100%. 100%. I think we touched on the beginning, but I want to touch on it one more time. When we have discussions like this, it's about education. It's about bettering, right? It's not about laying criticism or blame or saying somebody's not good at their job or qualified or whatever. It's like, hey, this is what happened. Here was the process that was taken. Here's the process that should be taken. Here's how we make sure this doesn't happen again. Here's how we improve upon it. You know what I mean? So I just think it's very important to do that, because, yeah, you're right. I've seen a lot of grief being given out there when, especially from people that haven't been in the situation. You've been in the situation. You know how high pressure it is. You know how crazy it is.
Well, and then not to mention, I have John Morgan and CM Punk. I'm hearing their commentary about it at the same time. And I'm saying, like, I'm thinking in my head, CM Punk, you're wrong. You're wrong. You feel good about it. Or John Morgan, you're right. Or John Morgan, you're wrong. Like, you're talking about the theory of the rule, but not the rule. You know what I mean? There's a lot of that stuff going on. It's crazy. I mean, it's wild to make that call, but that's why you're there, though, at the same time.
And then I think it's true as well also to point out that the unified rules, as great as they are and as much as they evolve, they still don't cover every possible scenario. So like you talked about kind of the spirit of the rule and how you interpret the rule. It's a fight. The craziest of situations happen. It doesn't outline every single possible scenario. It gives kind of generalities and guidance overall. So this was a weird one. This is a weird one, but you're right. The commission has a chance to get it right. I think they got it wrong, if I'm being honest with you. And look, the New Jersey State Athletic Commission, man, strong commission. We work with them a lot in CFSC. They do a great job. Nick Limbo, man, I've known him personally for 20 years now at this point. You know what I mean? It's crazy. He is good at what he does. They are a great commission. I just think in this very weird situation, I don't think justice was given. You know what I mean? Again, I think Bruno Silva was robbed of an opportunity to try to win that fight over the final, 240 or so that was left in the fight. So because of that, I think a change needs to be made.
All right, Fiorot outlasts Erin Blanchfield in I'm not going to say lackluster affair, but it was, we clearly knew who the better striker was in that match, and Fiorot wasn't going to overexpose herself. She played it smart. She got the clear-cut decision victory, sets Erin Blanchfield back, but she's young. She's that new breed. I loved her aggression, though. Like, Blanchfield, how can you not just like Erin Blanchfield, man? She's aggressive. Gas tank is unending. She was so disadvantaged with the reach, and she was still kind of getting off a little bit. And hats off to both those women. I mean, smart fight on one end, gutsy effort on the other.
It really was. And listen, I was as a CFSC vet, and I've called grappling matches with her. I was pulling for Erin Blanchfield to win this fight, but Manon Fiorot, man, she is a phenomenal fighter, man, and she has earned herself a title shot. Whether or not she'll sit around and wait for everything to unfold, or she'll fight once again. Maybe, an interim title is never a popular thing, but I mean, there's options for it. It'll be interesting to see what she does next. But if she wants to sit there and wait for a title shot, she has absolutely earned that right. She is a force to be reckoned with in the division. I think my biggest question out of Blanchfield, and maybe you can tell me what you saw or if you had any thoughts on it, is what I don't know is, was it that the game plan was bad, that Fiorot's execution was so good that it made it impossible, or that Blanchfield maybe just didn't execute on what she was trying to do? Because it just wasn't a fight I ever thought she was going to win on the feet. And I just didn't feel like there was enough concerted effort to really be trying to get things to the ground. And a lot of the advice that I heard in between corners seemed to be focusing on combinations and what she needed to be doing. I don't know, man. I thought
behind the jab, and I'm like, dude, but yes, I agree with you right then and there. Like, I don't agree necessarily, but this could have exposed a big deficiency in Blanchfield's game, right?
Right.
Listen, the size and length of I keep on saying it right. Pronounce her name one more time for me.
Manon Fiorot.
Fiorot.
I believe, but it's less harsh than that because it's very soft and subtle and French. She says it in a way that none of us can say because we don't speak French. So I think everybody just kind of goes with Fior and calls it that way.
Okay, Fior. So right, with the size and length and kind of underhooking ability and whatnot, it's going to be very hard to take somebody down like that against the cage. Now, Erin Blanchfield does it to everybody, but with somebody with that size and length and that skill and really knows how to dig and get her feet apart, it's very hard to drag somebody down. And so the deficiency may be in the wrestling, right?
Yeah.
Because there was no shot attempts. It was punch into the clinch was obviously the game plan. Punch into the clinch, where I would have liked to see the change levels into the shot.
Yep, exactly. Like, hey, throw two punches that you don't care if they land whatsoever. Just throw them so that she puts her hands up, and then you immediately change levels and go underneath it, and you're shooting it on the legs. And at least it'll get you to that clinch position. Even if you don't have a great double or a great single, at least it'll get you into that clinch position you need, because I thought she was struggling to even get the clinch position. And it's crazy, right? Because how different would the discussion be if she'd have hit that guillotine early on? Because that thing was looking awfully tight, man. She was tough in there, but Manon, man, she is. I mean, from the time she came into the UFC, you could see what a force she was, and I mean, she's got an incredible win streak. I think maybe isn't resonating with the casuals as much yet, just because she is getting decisions and people like to see finishes. She doesn't speak English, and I don't think that should be a requirement of being a fighter, but it just does help you connect with the American audience, which is the pay-per-view buying audience. But man, she's earned a right to fight for a title next. I guess we'll just wait and see kind of what happens with Alexa Grasso, Valentina Shevchenko, the Ultimate Fighter. It looks like they're slated to fight in September at the Sphere. I think that's what we're all assuming on that Mexican Independence Day show. So does Manon sit and wait for that? And now you're talking about maybe it's 9 months, 10 months, a year before she fights for the title. I don't know. I was thinking maybe they just say, but make an interim title so she can fight for a belt and do it in France. You know what I mean? They've come up with interim titles for lesser reasons. It wouldn't be justified at all, but at least then you're going, well, we don't want you to wait for a year, but we also will let you fight for a title. It's an interim title. And maybe that would intrigue her a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah, she already said she's waiting. So whether that be for the interim, who knows? Joaquin Buckley looked pretty damn cool, right? What do you got to say about that?
I did. I added him to my rankings list in my vote. We'll see if the rest of the panel does the same. But the guy looks like the real deal, man. I mean, he is so fun, and he's great in interviews. He's great on social media. His style is entertaining. He wants to fight in St. Louis next, which I think the UFC has got to find him a fight there. But man, he looks like a force at 170 pounds, because I remember when he made the announcement that he was going to drop down to welterweight, and I'm just like, how? I mean, that dude is bricked up. You know what I mean? I'm like, how are you getting down from middleweight? But man, it looks like he's making the weight no issue. And man, that dude is a real force, man. That's a new name in the welterweight division, man. He can match up with anybody.
Yeah, let's move forward. Interesting little news about a fight that, is it officially booked yet?
Which one?
Whittaker.
Oh, yeah, it's done. It's ready to go, man. That's announced. That's official, baby.
Oh, it's official. Robert Whittaker versus Khamzat Chimaev.
Amazing.
Holy smokes. When I read it, I didn't know that it was official. I thought it was pending, the official announcements, but it was all done. Man, has there been an opening line on that fight yet?
Ooh, that's a good question. Let me pull that up and see if I can find one real quick. Just for the record, it's a free plug here. I don't work with them, but I always go to Best Fight Odds. They have like all the odds listed there, and they do have one that has been posted by DraftKings. I have it. Would you care to take a stab at it, or do you just want me to roll it out there and let you know?
I want to take a stab at it because I haven't seen it.
Let's go. Let's go.
Chimaev minus 115.
Whoo! You are right that Chimaev is the favorite, but it's minus 166 is the line that they have. And Robert Whittaker on the comeback at plus 140.
The reason I put 115 is because I don't think he's the favorite, but I know he's the name and the brand. But I think Robert Whittaker is so good. If he's hard to take down. He can sprawl and brawl with the best of them. I'm not saying that Chimaev can't take him down. He probably will. But he is just good everywhere. His boxing is, like, especially in his last fight, was so crisp. Man, I am excited for that. What is that, 302?
That is good question, actually. No, that's in Saudi Arabia, right? Am I right there? Am I wrong? Now I'm questioning myself. But I'm looking at this line. Here's what's really interesting about this line. It's the UFC Fight Night that'll be in Saudi Arabia it's not that far off. It's still June, so we got a couple months. But here's what I'm trying to find. I'm trying to find more documentation on the opening of this line, because if you look at Best Fight Odds, which I said that I go to always to look at it, and you look at the line, they have that line moved instantly. Now, I don't know if this is accurate. That's what I'm trying to check. DraftKings is the only one they have, but they show Khamzat Chimaev opening at a plus 170 and immediately flipping to the favorite, whereas Robert Whittaker opened as the favorite at minus 200 and immediately flipping to the underdog.
That's got to be that. I find that hard to believe that either one of them would be that big. Minus 200.
Yeah,
Whittaker,
maybe
minus 200. But listen, let's go back. I'm not going to say that Chimaev is a one-round fighter, but what I can tell you is he is probably the best damn first-round fighter we have ever seen. This dude is like a killer in that first round. And then we've seen him wane from there. Robert Whittaker, battle tested. He's probably been in 10 5-round fights at this point.
Oh, that dude's, I mean, future Hall of Famer, absolute legend of the game. Yeah, check this out. Here's one. This is an offshore account, but I see them. They post a lot, and they send me a lot of social. It's betonline_AG or betonline.ag, which I believe I've been told is an offshore. So take that as you will. But they actually opened Chimaev as a -225, and he got hammered down to a -155. They opened Whittaker as a +190. And he's down to a 135.
Opened with Whittaker as a -200.
That's according to what they have here on this chart, but I don't know if that's right or not. That's why it's just like a 1 day. So interesting. Whatever it is, it's moving around a lot. I think that just goes to show you the type of quality fighters that these are, and just how. Man, I mean, I think there's a lot of divisiveness on Khamzat Chimaev, because you said it right. Like, for 5 minutes, that dude is a machine, But Robert Whittaker is the guy that, look, that dude is impossible to put away, right? So it's
Joel Romero hit him with sledgehammers repeatedly, and did not. And I'm not going to say didn't phase him, but I mean, he walked through him.
It's one of those. This is one of those ones. It's like, man, because and these are the fights that we love the best, right? The fights where you're like, man, I can really in my head see this happening, or I could really in my head see this happening as well. You know what I mean? You can really see both scenarios. Like, Khamzat is insanely good in the opening 5 minutes. I could see him running through anybody. He's that good. But Whittaker is that guy that's always there, man, that's not going away. So you could really see him rallying late, surviving that early barrage, getting through the trouble, and then inflicting his will later on. So hell of a fight, man. Hell of a fight. Cannot wait for that one.
This is the fight at 85 that you do want to see Chimaev. Like, you're like, okay, yeah, all this, the big game has been talked, but when you went to 85, you did it against a coming up from 70 Kamaru Usman, coming off the couch, right, and waning late. No less impressive, still being Kamaru Usman. But there's a lot of questions there. This is going to answer all the questions, though. Like, this is the UFC saying, we're not building you at 85 anymore. Like, it's either put up or shut up right now. And not saying that he's been talking like he shouldn't be there, but that's them saying, contender, like, you're fighting for the belt your next fight, or you're not. We'll find out right now. Robert Whittaker, let's go.
There's no more, there's no slow play. There's no more, hey, we're just building the character. We're, building into the story. Like, it's time to deliver. So love that fight. I believe, too, like I said, it's not happening until June, so we've got some time. But I believe, if I remember correctly, that one's happening on ABC as well. It'll be kind of a mid-afternoon type fight, right? Because it'll be prime time over in Saudi Arabia. Woo! So we get to watch that one on a Saturday afternoon on network television. Like, let's go. I'm looking forward to it.
Heck yeah. 2 weeks away. John Morgan, we're 2 weeks away. UFC 300. And guess what? Have you used that argument to tell people they're stupid for not thinking it's an awesome card yet?
I have laid it out there. I was like, man, Erin McMahon came out with this beautiful argument, and I was like, look at it, and it's a pretty convincing argument. People are like, that's pretty fair. That's pretty damn fair.
And that's early prelims, homie. Don't be scared, homie.
I can't wait. I'm so looking forward to it, man. It's going to be a heck of a week, man. We've got, obviously we've got the card this Saturday, but it's all about UFC 300 right now. Everybody's turning that. No offense to everybody that's fighting this Saturday at the Apex. I know to them it's the biggest fight of their career, because every time you step in there, it matters. But I think, man, for the fandom, man, we're already looking forward to 300, man, it's gonna be a great week. I've got CFFC 131 that week as well, which is a loaded card for us also. And man, to get those on back-to-back nights, man, I'm spoiled in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, you are. What'd you do this past weekend?
Chilled. I watched the show at home, man. I just got to kind of hang out. Obviously, I didn't make the trip to Atlantic City, so I watched it at home and kept it easy. And then yesterday, I came and checked into Resorts World in Las Vegas. By the way, first time here at Resorts World in Las Vegas. They host a lot of like official UFC after parties, and I've never been in here. I mean, I don't go to the official after parties or whatever, but because it was a holiday weekend, they had a nice rate. This place is cool. If you're ever in Las Vegas, give it a shot, man. Amazing restaurants, like cool pool area that my family's been hanging out at, and just a nice place, man. So I'm here to get.
We don't all got that John Morgan privilege.
I'm giving the official seal of approval to Resorts World. If you see they're doing some UFC events here, go check it out, man. It's worth it. It's a nice
cool.
property.
You gonna give me that John Morgan privilege when I get out there?
I mean, we'll connect you where we can. We'll do what we can.
I love it. I actually reffed Summit Fighting Championships in Tupelo, Mississippi this past weekend.
Very nice. Fun fights. Always look, support regional MMA. You know, I'm always going to be cheering for CFSC, of course. Big part of that organization. I work with Tough Enough here in Las Vegas as well. Do a little bit with Fight League Atlantic out in Canada as well. So I mean, I'm a big fan of regional MMA and local MMA, and obviously CFSC being chief among them. But support it, man. Right? Like for the value that you get for your tickets. I mean, for what you're paying versus like trying to go see a UFC event. Obviously, it's the premium brand, but it's obviously comes at a premium price. But man, and you get a chance to potentially see like big up and comers. You know what I mean? Of people that you can be a fan of their whole career, and you're like, man, I was there when the journey began. So I love regional MMA. So how did this one deliver? Was it a fun show?
It was a tremendously fun Pro-Am show. It was Mississippi. There was a fight in the crowd. I predicted it last week. I predicted it, didn't I?
You did.
There was an amateur,
by the way, Atlantic City had a few fights in the crowd too, which you can always predict those too.
Oh heck yeah! There was a fight, an amateur fight, where these guys were so tired, and then one guy hit the other guy. He falls face first. His mouthpiece goes flying out. The guy who hit him turns around, puts his hands up thinking, I'm going to call the fight. The fight's over. This guy hits the canvas and pops right back up like he's the Undertaker and starts chasing him. Wow. The whole crowd was like, oh my God, because it's like, dude, he did like a 360 face plant, then just like popped right back up and started chasing him. There was the main event was marred in a little bit of controversy. I kind of got put in a position. Do I disqualify or do I not? I opted not to disqualify, but,
Shades of Gary Copeland over there.
Well, it was two fighters. They got into it at the weigh-in, right? Chirping through the introductions, right? The one fighter takes him down in the first, goes straight to mount, goes straight to head and arm. It's tight. The other guy taps. Stop. I kind of tap the fighter. No top. I start pulling the body on him. He will not let go. The guy's tapping the whole time. Then I get in between, here and the carotid and start trying to pull it back. He finally lets go, puts the guy asleep after repeated taps, right? Now, all over the course of maybe, let's call it 5 seconds. So a lot happens in a short amount of time, right?
Yep.
But I'll tell you what, man, I've never admonished a fighter like I did. I literally, he let go at the same time as I was grabbing his arm. I literally dragged him like a few feet off of him and just was like, what are you doing? I got him. I said, go to the corner now. I got the commission into the ring with me immediately. I said, get in here. And and the reason I did that is because I wanted them to see if he popped back off to me. Right. About like, oh, I didn't mean to do it, or you weren't, or he wasn't tapping, or like, I wanted it to just be like, I wanted them there next to me. And then finally I just said, all right, high emotions, like go over there. But I could have very easily, because my job, but it's hard for me to disqualify after the fact. You clearly won the fight. Right. Like it has to be like you're stomping on the dude's head afterwards, like truth be told. Yeah. But, I told him, I said, listen, my only job here is to call balls and strikes and to make sure that you both walk out of here. And by your actions, he potentially couldn't have, just because you were emotional. I don't ever want to see that shit again, because I'm going to have a tight leash with you moving forward. Then I talked to the commission and he's like, well, what do you think? And I go, well, I'm still going to give him the win, but I don't want to tell you what to do. But I think a minimum, there has to be a suspension here.
Yeah, I spot on. I think you're right. It's difficult to call that a disqualification when it's a clear victory, right? So you're essentially kind of overturning the result. But that's something that I think the commission has to deal with. And I think, suspension, I hate to say fine, especially at that level, because I know that, the purses aren't that big at that level anyway. You said it was an amateur fight anyway, so no purse.
It was a pro.
That was pro fight. Pro main event. Yeah. So, I mean, but the purses at that level aren't, man. I mean, they need every dollar they're getting at that level. It's tough to come by. So I hate to say fine, but that's the kind of, if it was at the highest level, I think it would come with a fine. I think at minimum, you got to do a suspension, because I think you nailed it too in the way you described it, right? The reason that this sport that we love so much is able to exist is because we all have belief in the system that when we say it's done, it's done. When we decide that this has gone far enough, it has to stop at that moment, because there can be tragic and irreversible, issues that can arise if those rules are not followed. And so you have to understand, emotions do get the best of us. This is a highly emotional sport, especially when, it's a grudge match, like it sounds like it was with these two, with that high emotion. And as you said, a lot unfolds in a couple of seconds. But you have to realize, man, like you have to pay attention to the warnings of stopping, because bad things can happen.
Bad things can happen. Luckily, nobody got hurt. Everybody walked out of with cool head, and I got to get my dad hat on and be like, you cannot do that anymore. All right.
That's awesome.
Hope you had a good Easter weekend. I'm glad you're at Resort World with the John Morgan privilege.
That's how we do.
Yep. Fighting the Apex coming up this weekend, but then we're only less than 2 weeks away. UFC 300. We are going to dive, and I mean head first, into that next week. I'm here for it. I know John Morgan's going to be here for it. Follow on X, John Morgan _MMA. Till next time, and enjoy the fights.